stars are rising, bright morning, stars are rising, bright morning, stars are rising, day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. They are sowing seeds of gladness. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a breaking in my soul. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. They are in the fields of plowing. Day is a breaking in my soul.
Good morning and happy Easter. Welcome to this online service of Neshoba Unitarian Universalist Church in Cordova, Tennessee. I am the Reverend Beth Lefever, pleased and privileged to serve as the minister of this congregation, and I am so very glad that you have chosen to join with us this morning. Our opening words are by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. 'Twas Easter Sunday. The full blossomed trees filled all the air with fragrance and with joy. Let us be in worship together. And now our board vice chair, Bill Seiler, will light our chalice.
On Tuesday, Reverend Beth asked me if I would light the chalice for this week's worship service. And as it happened, that very day, Facebook had reposted something that I originally posted 7 years ago. What I had posted back then was a quote from one of Reverend Beth's sermons. So our chalice lighting words this morning are from the Reverend Beth Lefever. She had been preaching to us about our everyday experience of wonder and the transcendent. And this is what she had to say. The words we use for the transcendent speak to those moments which often defy the limits of language, but moments which you and I know well. The feeling of overwhelmedness at the miracle of birth and life and growth. The feeling of awe at the sheer brilliance of ever-evolving creation. The feeling of an exquisite tenderness that so swamps our souls on occasion that we can neither contain it nor explain it. With those words of Beth's in mind, we light the chalice this morning to remind us of hope and our everyday experience of the divine in our lives. Now I invite you to once again join me in the reaffirmation of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. So you know that today is Easter, and that's a holiday that's celebrated by Christians all over the world, and it's really about celebrating rebirth and new life, and that's why it's in the springtime. There's other religions that celebrate this time of year in different ways. So our Jewish siblings have recently celebrated Passover, which was about the Jews leaving Egypt and going to the Promised Land. And our Hindu friends celebrate a holiday called Holi that's also about spring and renewal and rebirth. And so realizing that all of these different religions celebrate things in different ways, they see the world in different ways, got me thinking about this book that I just recently got that's written by a woman here in Memphis, and it's called Guion the Lion. Guion the Lion, and it's by Rebecca Wilson Macsovits. So think about seeing the world in lots of different ways. Ray, wake up, you have to see this, exclaimed Guion the Lion. Under her breath, Ray, the bush baby, mumbled, I cannot think of one reason to be excited right now. Ta-da! Guion squinted his eyes, tilted his head, and swept his arms out wide. The kingdom is preparing for battle against the fierce dragon. I couldn't let my best friend miss the epic occasion. Seriously, Guion, you woke me up for this? Cried Ray. An ugly brown dirt mound that I can't see around? Oh, great. I see the termites are hard at work making this monstrosity even bigger. And that scary dragon is just Wilson the giraffe, chewing with her mouth open. I think you need to get your eyes checked. Guion looked back at the castle and thought for a minute. Smiling, he said, I know exactly what to show you, Ray. Let's go. Wilson had overheard her friends and stopped to take a look. She squinted her eyes, tilted her head, and then she heard a knight say, Hello, giraffe. Do you seek passage over our kingdom? Determined to share his fun, Guion guided Ray to the watering hole. With the help of a long reed and a tilt of his head, Guion looked at the underwater landscape. We've just discovered Queen Anne's Revenge, commanded by Captain Blackbeard. Oh, look, we aren't the first. The mermaids are playing hide and seek in the ship. Eager to see the pirate ship herself, Ray grabbed the reed. After a moment, Ray lifted her head and groaned. What are you talking about? There's no ship. It's just Hoke the hippo and his buddies taking a soak in a bunch of weeds. Let's get you to the shade, Guion, Ray sighed. The heat has gone to your head. Not ready to give up, Guion hollered, Keep up, Ray. Let's try one more place. As Ray and Guion raced off, Hoke grabbed a reed and tilted his head, just like he had seen Guion do. Hoke smiled widely at the wonders he saw. As the two friends entered the savannah, Guion stopped quickly, squinted, and tilted his head. Now don't be frightened, Ray. These are friendly dinosaurs. They won't eat you today, he chuckled. Wow, check out that T-Rex, shouted Guion. Ray rubbed her eyes and looked around at the familiar landscape. Frustrated, she moaned, "What dinosaurs? All I see are some big trees and Olivia the ostrich sitting on her nest." Discouraged, Guion scratched his head and wandered off, lost in thought. Not wanting to disappoint her friend, Ray thought about the day. Why couldn't she see the castle or the mermaids? Then she remembered that Guion had squinted his eyes and tilted his head each time. She could give that a try. Ray squinted her eyes and tilted her head. Was that a puff of smoke on top of a mountain? When she saw the terrifying T-Rex, she knew for sure. Jumping up and down, she exclaimed, "Holy smokes, I see it!" And it was the coolest thing she'd ever seen. Ray couldn't wait to tell Guion. Ray found her friend sitting alone and asked, "Hey, Guion, what do you see now?" He turned to her and responded, "A pretty sunset, right?" Ray slowly shook her head and said, "No." "It's not pretty, it's fantabulous," Ray exclaimed. "Look at the giant Ferris wheel." "And the huge circus tents," Wilson the giraffe added as she walked up behind them. "I want to win one of the prizes," Hope the hippo chimed in. "And I can almost taste the cotton candy," cried Olivia the ostrich. Guion looked around at his friends, and a huge smile spread across his face. "And the fireworks are incredible," he shouted. The friends leaned back to watch the final colors fade into the dark savannah sky. "I can't wait to see what tomorrow will bring," whispered Ray. Guion hugged his friend and nodded. There is so much to see. The end. So when you're looking around and noticing the springtime, share that with people. Tell people what you see and hope that they can see it too.
And now a few words from Rachel Farmer.
Hi. This is a picture of our church sign, and I kind of miss it. This is Rachel Farmer, and I've been asked to do a short talk about why I like this church. Why I like Neshoba. When I was asked to do this, I readily agreed because Neshoba Church is an important part of my life, and because of Neshoba, I can brag about how many Facebook friends I have. I've been coming to this church for about 8 years, and when I started thinking about why I come, I had difficulty writing a coherent narrative about it. So, instead, I followed the example of David Letterman and made a top 10 list. Number 1, my opinion is respected, or at least allowed. I feel free to state my opinions around other members of the church, and although they may not be admired, they are respected. Or at least allowed. Maybe tolerated? Number 2, I fit in because I don't fit in. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be in the in crowd, and during most of my life, I have rarely felt that I qualified to fit into specific groups. I was too old, too young, too uncool, too poor, too slow, too smart, too uncoordinated, too female, too scared, too Southern, too American, or followed the wrong sports teams. But here I qualify. I fit in because I don't fit in. 3, my spiritual beliefs cannot be contained in a couple of books. They might not be contained in a whole library of books. In fact, they probably can't be contained at all. At Neshoba, that's okay. 4, it's a place where I can be myself. Here I can be myself, and so can you, and so can they. Conformity is not required. Acceptance of difference is encouraged. Hey, where did that bullet come from? Number 5, it's a place where love is taught and freely given to all people. All people. Free. We stand on the side of love. 6, because laughter is important to my spiritual practice, and it is easily found at Neshoba. Silliness is one of my favorite things. How do you get rid of those bullets? 7, fellowship. I like being alone, but I don't like being lonely. Before coming to Neshoba, I felt disenfranchised and sometimes lonely because of my lack of belief in Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or other established religions. Christians could identify with a group, hang out, sing together, support each other, have some place to go on Sunday mornings, and have an answer when meeting people in the Mid-South to the inevitable question, where do you go to church? By going to Neshoba, I can hang out, be part of a fellowship group, and answer that question. Number 8, fear, shame, and guilt are not part of the program. I love not having to feel worse when I leave here than when I arrived. Hey, and it's okay to not know how to lose those bullets. Number 9, I can inspire myself, but sometimes I need a little outside inspiration. Some days I'm okay, ready to work on things that are important to me. At other times, though, I need a push, a fire lit under me to get me off my lily pad of routine and complacency. Well, maybe I should have asked somebody for help with those bullets. Number 10, I like to think and talk freely about things, and I can do that with others here. I feel less constricted, more liberated. So, how do you feel about bullets in presentations? 11, sexuality is considered a normal part of the life cycle. We have classes. Who cares about bullets? 12, I believe that science and spirituality complement each other. It's not an either-or situation. It's okay for me to believe in both facts and wonder. Luckily, our grammar police have forgiving spirits. 13, everyone gives something to help us keep whole. The timing when the giving is done is variable, and when I need to receive, someone else is giving. It works. Hey, perhaps someone could give me a lesson on bullet removing? 14, a spirit of acceptance. Here, it is okay to have more than 10 items on your top 10 list. My art can be wonky, my voice a little off-key, my potluck offering kind of sad-looking, but you love me anyway. 15, Neshobans help to bring peace to the world. And I like that. I couldn't figure out how to rotate this photo, so whatever. Progress, not perfection. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Our offering words are excerpted from Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. They're already shown the dawn of a renewed future, a full resurrection into new life. Love had resurrected them, and the heart of each contained inexhaustible springs of life for the heart of the other. Our morning offering will now be shared. My first reading is entitled Snowdrops by poet and essayist Louise Elizabeth Gluck. Do you know what I was, how I lived? You know what despair is. Then winter should have meaning for you. I did not expect to survive earth suppressing me. I didn't expect to waken again, to feel in damp earth my body able to respond again, remembering after so long how to open again in the cold light of earliest spring. Afraid, yes, but among you again. Crying, yes, risk joy in the raw wind of the new world. And my second reading is by Northern Irish writer, speaker, philosopher, and radical theologian, Peter Rollins. Without equivocation or hesitation, I fully and completely admit that I deny the resurrection of Christ. This is something that anyone who knows me could tell you, and I am not afraid to say it publicly, no matter what some people may think. I deny the resurrection of Christ every time I do not serve at the feet of the oppressed. Each day that I turn my back on the poor. I deny the resurrection of Christ when I close my ears to the cries of the downtrodden and lend my support to an unjust and corrupt system. However, there are moments when I affirm that resurrection, few and far between as they are. I affirm it when I stand up for those who are forced to live on their knees, when I speak for those who have had their tongues torn out, when I cry for those who have no more tears left to shed. Easter is a complicated Christian observance with many layers of meaning for those within and even outside the Christian faith. For Christians, there is no story as critical as the resurrection story. As Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians, if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain, and your faith is in vain. We are even found to be misrepresenting God. If Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile. But did a literal bodily resurrection of Jesus really happen as it is outlined in each of the 4 Gospels? And if not, where does that leave the faith that is wholly based upon the resurrection of Jesus? Among my several Christian clergy friends, none believes that the resurrection story is literally true, although they all struggle with how to frame the story for those parishioners who take it more literally than do their pastors. My friend Janet, a UCC minister, says, people debate whether the resurrection of Jesus was a bodily resurrection. The majority of Christians, even some liberal Christians, believe that it was, even though we know scientifically that that is not possible. When confronted with the fact that it is not possible, Janet continues, they respond with, well, can't God work miracles? In fact, though, she says, it is a moot point. The fact is that Jesus, who seems to embody the presence of the holy, lives on in people's lives. The truth of the resurrection is that goodness and light, promise and hope prevail over darkness, hopelessness, and despair. I agree with Janet. I believe that the Christian resurrection story is a powerful myth in which great truth resides. As the saying goes, all of these things are true. Some of them actually happened. Jesus was a man who lived his ideals and died a lonely, excruciating death because of them. But though he was killed, he was not annihilated, and in fact lives on more powerfully now than ever. His spirit, that is, the love and values he expressed with passion and intention, his spirit, like that of all great prophets, lives on in the best of that which is humankind. When embraced genuinely and generously, his spirit, the love and values by which he lived, provides the inspiration and a structure by which darkness, hatred, and bitterness can be defeated. Where I diverge from my Christian pastor friends is that I believe that while Jesus was a more highly evolved soul, at least figuratively, than most of the rest of us, we all are part of the same divine universal order, and as such have the same innate capacity to heal and make whole, that same capacity through which others may experience resurrection. We all have the ability to bring each other back to life. We all have the ability to touch the lives of others and to be touched by others in ways that reanimate, reinvigorate, and revivify us. That is the real miracle of the resurrection story, in my heart and mind. That is the real miracle. It is the story of the continual spark of divine essence that resides within each of us and cannot be extinguished. Even in death, our light shines on in those who have known us and in those who have known those who knew us. With this inherent spark of holy essence, we may reignite one another, reignite someone whose spark may be flickering, or light the way for someone else whose spark may be temporarily in the shade. And so we may similarly be served when our own embers burn low. My friend Janet is right. Whether the body of Jesus was resurrected or not is a moot point. The resurrection story is the story of goodness reaching out to otherness in ways that shape and change us, and from which we may breathe in new life and press on. It is my victory reaching out to your brokenness, and your hope reaching out to my despair. It is the story of love made manifest over and over again, personally and universally. That is why I especially like this morning's reading by Peter Rollins. We are not living up to the truth of the resurrection story if we are not reaching out to others, assisting others, living for others. That is what Jesus was all about. And whether we believe in his literal resurrection or not, we deny him if we defy or ignore his teachings. The late evangelist Billy Graham said, "By Christ's resurrection life, he gives us the power over the tendency to sin as we allow him to control our lives." It sometimes doesn't seem that way, which endears me to author Sarah Holman's challenge. What if we lived like Jesus really did rise from the dead? Yes, what if we did? Would unabated greed be diminished? Would care for the other become a common way of life? Would hatred, suspicion, cruelty, and violence become things of the past? Resurrection, revival, rejuvenation, restoration, reanimation, renewal, rebirth. For Christians, resurrection is about the rising of Jesus on the third day after the crucifixion. For more liberal Christians, it may be taken metaphorically, pointing to the new life possible through the saving grace of Jesus. That metaphor appeals to me. I believe in grace that saves, whether it be the grace of Jesus or the grace of nature, the grace of love or the grace of spring. It is grace that resurrects us time after time, grace that steadies us when we tumble, tugs us up when we fall, pulls back the curtain when we need a glimpse of a fairer world. It is grace that startles us with a sudden awareness of contentedness, and that soothes us with knowledge that life is bigger than our current pain. It is grace that guides us from the shallows of our struggles to the depths of deeper meaning. Grace is defined as, among other things, the freely given unmerited favor and love of God, the influence or spirit of God operating in humans, a virtue of excellence, of divine origin. Perhaps there is something of the divine in the hope of spring, the promise of new sprouts pushing forth out of damp earth. Perhaps there is a divine aspect to understanding and love. And surely, if divinity exists anywhere, it exists in the unmerited forgiveness of one human being by another for a wrong done or a harm inflicted. Grace involves generosity, a generosity of spirit. Whether it is the generosity we extend to one another in acts of acceptance, love, and forgiveness, or the generosity of our own capacity for insight and understanding. Whether it is the generosity of the divine or of a benevolent universe, or merely the generosity of the sun calling forth a new day and beckoning the flowers to rise from the earth. We can be the conveyors of grace, and in fact may be the very best conveyors of grace, humans one to another, one to the earth, one to the universal web of all existence. Grace. It is not something you can call upon, except perhaps in the clearly religious sense. It is something that graces you with its presence. It is something that comes to you unbidden, brushes across your soul ever so lightly and moves on, leaving you with a sense of relief, renewal, contentment, a born-againness, if I may temporarily lay claim to that phrase. You feel fuller and more complete, more whole, if only briefly. But that brief moment is enough for now. It is enough. That is the way of grace. It finds you, asking only that you recognize it, embrace it, and then let it go, smiling after it as it moves on to touch another. Grace, peace, resurrection. May it be real. May it be so. And amen. And now let us move into a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Let us take in a breath, breathe fully, quiet ourselves as we consider the miracle of resurrection. The miracle of the resurrection is not that Jesus was returned to life from death. There are 9 such incidents recorded in the Bible alone. But rather that resurrection abounds in us, for us, and all around us throughout time and place. In our return to laughter after grief, caring after apathy, energy after depletion, excitement after boredom. In the return of friendship after estrangement, and in effort after having given up. In the return of belief after skepticism, whatever the topic, and in appreciation after cynicism. Resurrection flourishes in the return of green after the brown of winter, the return of flowers after ice and snow, and the return of the sun after the storm, and the day after the night, all displaying for us the wonder of life's sacred mystery. Perhaps of most cultural significance, resurrection occurs on those occasions when religion is brought out of a too long darkness, a too far tumbling off the path, and back into the light of life, of Jesus rather than just his death, into the light of Jesus' ministry rather than his resurrection alone. Resurrection occurs when religious leaders find their way, led by the courageous among them and by the followers behind them who press diligently forward toward the light, that glowing golden light which beckons forth from that place wherein resides the best that is at the core of all religions, that which makes sacred those life-affirming attributes of love, acceptance, mercy, forgiveness, sharing, giving, service, and joy. Resurrection abounds, and it abounds, and it abounds, in large ways and in small, for you and for me, for us and for all, day in and day out. And on this particular day, this Easter Sunday, We stretch toward its promise. We embrace its gift and we celebrate its very real wonder. Amen, and happy Easter. And until next week, blessed, blessed be.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the